Nations General Assembly, UNGA, in the United States of America in September. President Chakwera described his trip as successful, saying the meeting accorded Malawi an opportunity to tell the world the challenges it is facing and how best they can be addressed. Maisoji Kadzula looks back to the trip.
This year, the 79th session of the UNGA was held under the theme, Leaving No One Behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development, and human dignity for present and future generations. Speaking during the meeting, President Chakwera said the session was a great milestone into achieving various sustainable development goals championed by the United Nations. In his statement, Dr. Chakwera emphasized the need to work together in addressing the many challenges countries are facing globally. Dr. Chakwera said effects of climate change continues to suffocate many countries, as every year has been declaring Malawi a state of national disaster because of cyclones.
I have declared state of national disaster every year because of climate change impacts that we cannot solve without multilateral cooperation. And for one of those years, I was chair of two development communities, namely the Southern Africa Development Community, SADC, and the least developed countries, LDCs. And I learned firsthand that no nation can survive a global crisis or develop in the face of shocks without strong multilateral cooperation to sustain it.
Speaking in an interview, the president said the session has helped Malawi to sell its ATM strategy, as well as highlight some of the challenges Malawi and other developing countries are facing.
You may recall that as a result, not only of the cyclones previous, but the El Nino effect, Malawi is food insecure. 5.7 million people needing assistance. And so we wanted to court U.S. investors, world investors, partners, to come and invest in Malawi's agricultural sector. You remember we've been talking about the ATM strategy, agricultural productivity, and tourism as well as mining, so that we can push forward Malawi's development agenda.
On the side end of the General Assembly, Dr. Chakwera had an opportunity of meeting with various global leaders, including the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, as one way of deepening relations. Dr. Chakwera said it was pleasing to note that Malawi was accorded another opportunity to host its second Malawi Partners Conference in New York.
Our mission at this year's conference is clear: to forge new partnerships and explore innovative strategies that will enhance investment in agriculture. I'm thus confident that this conference will provide a vital platform for identifying and capitalizing on new opportunities in agro-processing and value addition that highlight Malawi's rich potential.
African Development Bank President Akinwumi Adesina said the organization will continue supporting Malawi. Adesina also announced the 95 billion kwacha support to Malawi.
In Malawi, like every other place, you find rural areas, you find this big tree called a baobab tree. It's big, very big. You put your hand around it alone, you can't do it. But if you join hands like that around any baobab tree, you can do it. And so let's figure out opportunities for agriculture, economic development. Malawi is like a baobab tree. It's going to take more than one person. It's going to take more than two people. It's going to take all of us doing that for Malawi.
While in New York, President Chakwera and the First Lady, Madam Monica Chakwera, attended the second annual Africa-US Presidential Forum held in New Jersey, where he was given a Presidential Honorary Award for promoting education among the youth in Africa and globally. Dr. Chakwera commended the Stevens Institute of Technology for showing commitment to promoting educational exchange and collaboration between the U.S. and Africa. President of Stevens Institute of Technology, Dr. Nariman Favadin, said the university organized the event in partnership with Nicotech Center of Excellence to show commitment to foster technological innovation and educational excellence to ensure a brighter future for Africa's next generation of leaders and innovators.
We aim not just to transform individual lives, but to strengthen economies and foster innovation across Africa and the world.
From New York, Dr. Chakwera proceeded to Washington, D.C., where he held high-level talks with various organizations that directly support Malawi's development, including the IMF, World Bank, USAID, among others. The president appreciated their support to his government before returning back home. Maesoje Kadzula, MBC News, Lilongwe.
President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera had a historic visit to the Vatican, where he held talks with the head of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis. Dr. Chakwera also visited Frankfurt and Berlin in Germany for a number of engagements, including meeting the German president. Blessings Kanache gives highlights of the trip.
Upon his arrival in the Vatican, Dr. Chakwera met the head of the Catholic Church and the Holy See, His Holiness Pope Francis, and held discussions with His Eminence Pietro Parolin, Cardinal Secretary of State of Vatican City. In Rome, the Malawi leader met Director General of the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO Q Dongyu, as well as President of Community of St. Egidio, Marco Impagliazzo. In summary, Dr. Chakwera says his visit to the Vatican and Italy was beneficial because the Catholic Church is a partner in development.
Of course, it was a great honor to meet with His Holiness the Pope and to have discussions with him and his team. We felt greatly honored as Malawi because I represented Malawians. And so to hear the Pope's passion and eagerness to engage with me, even as I engaged with him, was a great experience that one never forgets.
From Rome in Italy, Dr. Chakwera proceeded to Frankfurt in Germany, where his first meeting was with the mayor of Offenbach City, Lord Mayor Dr. Felix Schwenk, before he held discussions with investors who signed an agreement with the government to start their water transport services on Lake Malawi. He also visited one of the companies manufacturing automated bicycles, where the manufacturer asked the president to try the ride. In Berlin, Dr. Chakwera engaged a number of investors, including Lübeck University, which plans to come to Malawi to study training medical personnel in diabetes and hypertension. Another important highlight of the visit is the signing of a $70 million solar power deal between Malawi and SunPower Africa Development. And the climax of Dr. Chakwera's visit was the bilateral meeting he had with his German counterpart, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, at the presidential palace. But how important was this visit?
The crowning thing was meeting with the president, His Excellency Steinmeier, and we had very cordial discussions. So on one hand, we have met with private sector players. On the other hand, we have met with government officials, including the president. And we have discussed a range of topics that will cement the relationship that Malawi has enjoyed with Germany for the last 60 years. But we believe that these relations will go to a different level now with these visits. And I have invited the president to come visit Malawi as well.
The visit has ended, but its multiplier effects will be felt once plans in the agreements start to materialize as early as December this year, according to some investors. Blessings Kanache, MBC News, Berlin in Germany.
On 11th September 2024, Malawi received the first consignment of fuel by train from Beira in Mozambique through Maka border in Nsanje for the first time in 41 years. President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera led Malawians in receiving the train at Maka. Blessings Cheleuka was there and he now reports.
On 4th September 2020, President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera promised Malawians through Parliament that his passion was to fix the abandoned systems deemed crucial for development. One of the broken systems was the rail transportation. The president described the arrival of 1.2 million litres of fuel by train as a milestone achievement in his promise to restore rail transportation by 2025. The president expressed satisfaction at seeing his dream become a reality and pledged to continue addressing the country's broken systems to benefit the poor majority. Dr. Chakwera also commended the strong relations between Malawi and Mozambique, citing the successful fuel transportation as evidence of their fruitful cooperation. Area Traditional Authority Ndamera of Msanje commended President Chakwera's legacy in reviving rail transportation, saying it will endure for generations. In her remarks, Board Chairperson of National Oil Company of Malawi, Colin Zamba, described the rail transportation as the most reliable, wondering why it was abandoned for years by previous regimes. Also speaking, Minister of Transportation Jacob O'Hara said the revival of rail transportation will help in the reduction of prices of basic commodities. The train from Beira to Nsanje came for the first time in 41 years after it was abandoned in 1983. The country saw another train on 23 July 2024 carrying fuel from Nakala to Lilongwe for the first time in 21 years. Blessings Chedeuka, MBC News, Nsanje.
President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera appeared twice in Parliament in 2024, fulfilling a constitutional obligation to respond to questions from members of Parliament on national issues. These appearances in February and during the 6th meeting of the 50th session on 18th December 2024 underline his commitment to transparency and accountability. The President's compliance with Section 89, subsection 4 of the Constitution, alongside Standing Order 70A, subsection 2, reinforces democratic principles such as separation of powers and good governance. MacDonald Chiwayula reports.
Earlier in 2024, during the February sitting of Parliament, President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera addressed key issues including food security, mining, retirees' pensions, and the country's external engagements. On food security, he assured that the government is committed to ensuring no Malawian dies of hunger. He said that relief food distribution commenced with efforts supported by imports of maize, flour from Tanzania and South Africa. The president also highlighted the identification of over 56,000 hectares for irrigation farming, a measure aimed at mitigating the impact of adverse weather conditions. On mining, Dr. Chakwera explained the government's initiative to structure the gold market through the Reserve Bank of Malawi, RBM. At the time of filing the report, the RBM had already purchased 187 kilograms of gold, which would be purified and stored as gold bars. The president urged Parliament to support efforts to prevent illegal exportation of the mineral. Turning to national security, the president declared that the government would not pay any ransom to hackers who infiltrated the country's passport printing system, emphasizing that public funds would not be used to appease criminals. Regarding pensions, Dr. Chakwera said that the Ministry of Finance increased the budget allocation for retirees' pensions from 133 billion kwacha to 182 billion kwacha to clear existing arrears. Recently, during the 60th meeting of the 50th session of Parliament, President Chakwera responded to accusations of overspending on foreign trips. Leader of opposition, George Chaponda, raised concerns about the expenses associated with the president's trips. He suggested delegating such responsibilities to ministers to reduce costs.
What policy do you have when it comes to financial management? I'm asking because Your Excellency, you have made over 60 foreign trips with large entourage. This has resulted in overspending. Consequently, we have had large budget deficit.
The president then clarified that many of his trips are fully funded by event organizers and are essential for high-level representation and decision-making.
First of all, Malawi is part of global economy. It is a bad foreign policy that excludes Malawi from others. And so whenever it is possible. I have made trips that would be for the benefit of our nation. When I would miss as important meetings as the Commonwealth, Commerce, and others, it means that I'm not attending every meeting, and ministers represent me to some of those. I also wish you to know that in some instances, my trips have been funded by those who have requested for me to attend in behalf of Malawi. And so to talk of wastefulness, as you put it, that would have been demonstrated. I just read you a response which was detailed.
Dr. Chakwera concluded his response by emphasizing his dedication to fulfilling his duties as mandated by the Constitution, ensuring that his appearances before Parliament are meaningful and constructive. McDonald Shwayura, MPC News, Lilongwe.
In November, the United Nations Climate Change Summit, COP29, was held in Baku, Azerbaijan, where developed countries committed to support developing nations with $300 billion annually by the year 2030 to help them deal with climate change-related shocks. Nearly 200 countries, including Malawi, participated in the summit, which garnered significant global attention and achieved notable progress on crucial climate action goals. The Malawi delegation at the summit was headed by Vice President Dr. Michael Usi, and Peter Makawa covered the summit and looks back at the event.
Monday, 11 November 2024, the stage was set for Azerbaijan capital Baku to host the 2024 United Nations Climate Change Conference of Parties, popularly known as COP29. The aim of the summit, among others, was to take stock of progress made and challenges encountered in implementing 3 treaties that countries like Malawi are party to. Meanwhile, Malawi's position paper to the COP29, signed by the Secretary for Natural Resources and Climate Change, Yusuf Nkungula, described the COP29 as a crucial moment in the global effort to combat climate change. It is on record that similar negotiations have resulted in Malawi getting financial and technical support for the implementation of climate change projects in vulnerable communities.
We have prioritized 3 sectors: agriculture, energy, and transport, so that we develop projects in those areas for us to adapt to climate change impacts in Malawi.
As world leaders were converging in Baku, environmental experts called upon developed countries to be committed to their financing obligations to mitigate effects of climate change in the least developed countries, LDCs. The call came as it is widely acknowledged that high-income countries have done far more cause to climate change with their larger economies and more polluting lifestyles. In a statement ahead of the opening of the conference, the LCD Climate Group chairperson, Evans Njewa, said this left poorer nations battered by the effects like floods and drought that sweep and eat away crops in countries like Malawi. The Malawi Vice President, Dr. Michael Usi, led Malawi's delegation to the conference. As the meeting progressed, Malawi called for fulfillment of various commitments on climate change by appealing to rich nations to walk the talk on various climate change commitments made during COP28 in Dubai. During a bilateral meeting with Scotland's acting cabinet secretary, Gillian Martin, the Vice President urged Scotland to advocate for developed countries to fulfill their COP28 commitments aimed at addressing irreversible climate impacts. The meeting also tackled a number of other areas, including development assistance to Malawi's education sector. The Vice President, Dr. Michael Usi, addressed world leaders at the conference, both as the head of Malawi delegation, as well as on behalf of 45 other nations in the least developed countries group, which Malawi chairs. In his statement, the Vice President urged the international community to take bold action to address climate change and support the least developed countries to ensure a sustainable future.
I would like to make the voice louder that the hour for change is now. COP29 is not simply a conference, it is a call to action, a defining moment for our collective future. This conference follows a landmark decision and a global stake we made last year in Dubai, which reinforced that we must do more and we must do it with great resolve.
The Vice President also seized the opportunity in Baku to hold a number of side meetings, including discussions with Green Climate Fund, OPEC Fund, and African Climate Fund. He also met with the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres.
There have been pledges made, but not much is coming through. We have funding for adaptation, resilience, recovery, and mitigation. We do have funds, but for the developed countries to remit the funds, it's becoming a challenge. So the discussion looked at what ought to be done so that the funds can be made available to the least developed countries. In the case of Malawi, the issues of Cyclone Freddy are still biting Malawi. We are failing to recover fully because the pledges that have been made before have not come to Malawi up to now. We do have some funding, yes, trickling through, but it is not sufficient. It is not in the whole amount as promised. So the United Nations Secretary General was telling us that he is in support of Malawi, in support of the least developed countries that should get funding.
The COP29 took a decisive step forward to elevate the voices of indigenous people and local communities in climate action. Senior Chief Lukwa was among the traditional leaders who were in attendance.
In Malawi, we have experience. 2 years, 1 year ago, our friend, our brothers, it was a disaster in Mulanje, Blantyre, and the other districts, southern part of Malawi, even the central region. So for sure, we are the people. We are the community leader. We are living with our communities. So it is our job, it is our duty to civic our communities so that they can follow climate change laws, climate change principles, in order to save them.
As the COP29 continued, there were still fears that some developed countries would not fulfill their pledges in financing developing countries in their efforts to address climate change. However, one of Malawi's delegates to the summit, Sosten Chiota, was optimistic.
In life, that's what happens. And so let's not get discouraged. The fact that the COPs continue means that there's a platform where we can negotiate and make sure that we reach mutual understanding.
Indeed, true to his words, on 24 November 2024, the COP29 closed. It closed with a new finance goal to help countries to protect their people and economies against climate disasters and share in the vast benefits of the clean energy boom. With a central focus on climate financing, COP29 brought together nearly 200 countries and reached a breakthrough agreement that, among others, will triple public finance to developing countries from previous goal of $100 billion annually to $300 billion annually by 2035. Vice President Dr. Michael Wusi described the COP29 as fulfilling.
We have met the right people. We have discussed the relevant topics. We have made some progress, which must of course be followed up with action. And there are Malawians who are here, who are going to remain in the technical panels to look at this nitty-gritty that must be followed to the latter, so that at the end of the day, we know exactly what ought to be done so that we get the funding.
The 2024 United Nations Climate Change Conference in Baku, Azerbaijan, was attended by approximately 70,753 people and 3,975 visual participants. It was the second largest COP to date after the 2023 summit in Dubai. While the summit is said to be yielding substantial outcomes, the real challenge lies in the implementation of the agreed upon actions and targets. The success of COP29 will ultimately be measured by the tangible progress made in the years to come, especially during the review
of COP28 and COP29 action plans during the COP30 next year in Brazil. Peter Makawa, MBC News, Baku, Azerbaijan.
We now move into the political segment. 2024 has been all about groundwork in preparation for the 2025 general election. From MEC announcing the electoral calendar, carrying out voter registration, and political parties holding elective conventions. In the year just ended, the Malawi Electoral Commission launched the 2025 general elections. The electoral body started preparations for the election, with voter registration done in 3 phases. Both the ruling and the opposition parties took advantage of the exercise to woo potential voters to register, despite some concerns on electoral processes. Austin Fukula and Beatrice Mape have compiled this report.
Malawi Electoral Commission MEC launched the 2025 general elections activities in August with a call for political parties and electoral stakeholders to actively participate in the forthcoming elections. Justice Annabel Ntalimanja said the Commission will strive to ensure that the 2025 election is fair and credible to all. The electoral body then conducted 3 phases of voter registration exercise, each phase lasting for 2 weeks. According to Malawi Electoral Commission's statistics, over 7 million people in the country registered in the 3 phases. Some political parties, however, namely DPP, UTM, UDF and AFORD, raised concerns on the registration exercise, including procurement and use of machines from Smartmatic company by MEC, alleging such gadgets were used for rigging in some countries. There were also issues around presence of National Registration Bureau officers to allow new applicants register in the voters' roll. DPP Secretary General Peter Mukito, in a fresh interview, stated that they are not satisfied with the conduct of NRB, which he says, in some cases, disallowed new ID applicants to register in voters' books for the 2025 general election. However, after a review, the Commission has resolved to reopen voter registration for 5 days in the districts targeted in the first phase. Sangwani Mwafulirwa is MEC spokesperson.
Phase 1 covered Chitipa, Karonga Town, Zuzu City, Kota, Nchisi, Salima, Deda, Baraka, Machinga, Chiladzulu, Neno, Palombe, and Demanje. The Commission is going to reopen voter registration centers for 5 days. The purpose is to provide an opportunity for all eligible voters that registered or would have registered with the National Registration Bureau from the 21st of October 2024 to go and register as voters. This is in compliance with the court ruling that said that all people that presented themselves at a registration center and they are not registered with the NRB, they should be accorded an opportunity to register with the NRB, then register with the MEC.
For MCP Secretary General Richard Chimwendo, the party is happy with the number of people registered in all phases of voter registration.
I'll talk more about Malawi Congress Party. I will not talk about any other institution because we continue to respect their independence.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think as a party, we have had a very good year. We have had mass voter registration mobilization, which the team was so busy, including the president himself. We are also happy with the outcome of the numbers of members of our party that have registered ready to vote for elections.
A report by Jisanko Watch, a coalition of NGOs, says the challenges experienced during voter registration were similar in all 3 phases. Bishop Clifford Matonga has since urged Malawi Electoral Commission to address these challenges by ensuring people receive right information.
Political parties continue to speak the contrary to what the explanation has been. That has been another thorny issue affecting the registration process, because now people continue to think that there is going to be voter rigging, and therefore why should they go and register? So this issue of misinformation and disinformation continues to haunt us, and we do not want to correct as Malawians on that and give correct information.
As the new year starts, the expectation among many Malawians is to see a free, fair and credible election come 16 September 2025, when voters will elect president, members of parliament and ward councillors.
And as indicated earlier on, the party elective conventions were the biggest highlight politically. All major political parties elected new leaders and torchbearers in readiness of the 2025 general election. The political parties include the ruling Malawi Congress Party, MCP, opposition parties, Democratic Progressive, DPP, United Democratic Front, UDF, United Transformation Party, UTM, and AFOD. Well, our reporter Blessing Seleuka looks at how things unfolded during this elective convention.
All major political parties successfully held conventions in 2024 ahead of general election coming in September 2025. According to political analyst Humphrey Mvula, this indicates that our democracy is maturing as political parties have recognized the significance of conventions in the electoral process.
The most democratic convention possible was by MCP. MCP had a large number of competitors in basically all positions. You are not able to tell who would basically carry the position below that of president. But the President Chakwera went and opposed. But the other positions, they were quite contested. And in MCP, we saw a large number of women making it into the leadership of the party. And then we also saw young men who have made it into the leadership of the party. Then you also had a very difficult convention in DPP. Unfortunately, in DPP, despite them talking about the convention for a long time, but probably toward the end, we had problems of intimidation, problem of stopping other people from basically challenging the leader of the party. So you got a party that went into a convention with predetermined results and having kicked away several individuals who were initially allowed to go out and campaign, but they were basically stopped. And some individuals decided to leave the party. So after the convention, what has happened is that some members have left the party, very good party members. One of them was Kabambe, who was aspiring in DPP. Today is the president of UTM, a very, very remote possibility. No one saw him becoming a president after he was more or less rejected from DPP. Nanguma went out to left the party, DPP, to form his own party. That's again a very good development in terms of democracy. In terms of cohesion of the party, it's a negative position, because if Nanguma remained in DPP, Kabambe remained in DPP, we were talking about a very, very formidable party that would wrestle back power. And then the DPP went again into the convention fractured because they stopped other people from taking part in the convention. We had also conventions of PP, where former President Joyce Banda retained her position as president of the party. And then we had conventions of Ford, where Enoch Hanna is still the president. So the long and short of it is that our parties are becoming mature, they value conventions.
Mvula states that the first quarter of 2025 will be marked by the formation of political alliances, as it will be difficult for parties to secure the 50% plus one vote required under the new system without collaboration.
Currently, there are machinations underground where parties are trying to pick alliance partners. We've seen one clear impending alliance that's between the DPP and the Ford. They have come up to the people to say, yes, we're talking. MCP has not decided who it is going to go out with. I'm very sure it is also thinking of alliance partners. The only difference may be MCP may be looking for alliance partners that are going to add value the value being additional votes. The MCP has got a strong central region bloc. I hope it will remain strong. They have got to think of alliance partners from areas where those individuals would also add value to their votes. Because the 50+1 entails that there's no one party that would convince itself to say that it would do well. But I think by February of 2025, we should see several parties positioning themselves in alliance blocks. I see two blocks, the MCP bloc, the DPP bloc. But if the UTM president, or if UTM will stand by itself, possibly it may also attract other members. And then there may be a third bloc. But I see outright two blocks. And members of parliament, it is going to be very difficult. General election, most may not make it because basically they have not done very well. We spend time thinking about the performance of presidents, but members of parliament as well, in all the regions, 3 regions, most have not done well.
After voting for political party torchbearers at the convention level in 2024, eligible Malawians will be granted their constitutional right to vote in the general election scheduled for September 2025. Blessings Chideuka, MBC.
In 2024, the country's political landscape experienced nasty incidents of violence and intimidation, which resulted in injuries and loss of a life of a young man in Durande Township in Blantyre, which, according to experts, threatens to weigh down gains which Malawi has made since introduction of multi-party democracy. In this report, Isaac Jali looks at some of the incidents and the threat which violence poses to Malawi's democracy.
In recent months, there has been a spate of politically motivated violence in some parts of the country. Some believe that although Malawi has a history of political tension, hate speeches and intimidations by some political leaders have incited or helped to escalate tension between rival political party supporters. It is clear that the trend has the potential to create an atmosphere of fear and unrest. Hence, commentators and civil society organizations have all voiced their concern and have called for a robust conflict resolution mechanism for sanity to prevail, especially now when Malawi is gearing up for the 2025 polls. Chimwemwe Tsitsi, one of the political commentators, feels time has come for law enforcement agencies to take action on perpetrators, while also urging political leaders to promote dialogue than making public utterances that may escalate the problem.
For me, I think, first of all, it is the responsibility of every citizen of Malawi to ensure that they inculcate a spirit of tolerance, political tolerance, so that we avoid indulging in political violence simply because we have different political viewpoints. But the chief of all, I think, is a political leader. Every political leader must be above the citizen when it comes to preaching political tolerance and condemning and avoiding acts of political violence. Therefore, it is my expectation that political leaders should desist from inciting political violence amongst their supporters. Furthermore, the Malawi Police Service has got the responsibility to make sure that they investigate cases of political violence, bring to justice the people that are involved in political violence or those that are inciting political violence, so that by the end of the day, this can deter would-be offenders from committing a similar offense.
Meanwhile, the worst incident of all happened in Durande Township, where a young Malawi Congress Party MCP official was killed. On several occasions, Malawi Congress MCP Secretary General Richard Chimwendo Banda has condemned violence, saying Malawi is not ready to experience civil unrest incited by politicians. He therefore called on the police to investigate the Durande saga.
The lapses we are seeing with the leadership of DPP in failing to control their members, because this is now more or less like a policy and DPB to perpetuate violence and clearly targeting Malawi Congress Party. The first instance was Malawi Congress Party banned them. The second instance, Malawi Congress Party beat them and chased them. And this is coming after our member was killed and after we have seen quite a number of members of Malawi Congress Party being intimidated. So it's condemning violence, and we don't want to see this continuing. Secondly, is also calling for the civil society organizations, churches, and leaders in the country to join hands so that we condemn together violence.
The Minister of Information and Digitalization, Moses Kunkuyu, commenting on the political violence, stressed the importance of maintaining humanity despite political or religious differences. Kunkuyu, who is also government spokesperson, lamented that celebrating the suffering of others because of political differences shows loss of humanity, and this should not happen in Matipati era. Isaac Jali, MBC, Lilongwe.
We now join the business team for the major business news events of the year 2024. And joining us is Justin Nkweo.
Thank you very much. And indeed, within the year, a lot of business and economic events took place. We cannot give you all, but we have carefully selected the year's big events. And what a year it was, full of stories of economic turbulence and resilience, and of course, economic gains. But what are they? Well, stay with us. The Malawi economy sailed in stormy waters in 2024. It suffered from the aftermath of 2023 natural disasters, internal and external shocks that only increased its fragility through rising inflation, and scarcity of foreign exchange resulted in unstable fuel supplies. At the same time, revenue collection declined. But these shocks aside, the economy has remained steadfast and is now showing signs of recovery. During the year, Malawi held a number of investment forums to market the country's various investment opportunities. The forums included the EU-Malawi Investment Forum, the Agriculture Expo, the Mining Expo, and the Tourism Expo, among others. Trust Office takes us through the investment forums while analyzing their impact.
In November this year, the country hosted the first ever Malawi EU Investment Forum, an investment conference which promises to bring more returns for the energy sector. Previously, the successful hosting of the Malawi Investment Forum brought in companies like JCM Power, Malawi Mangoes, and many others. European Commission Deputy Director General Miriam Ferran has since promised more investment to boost Malawi's economy.
We would like to increase the level of European foreign direct investment in Malawi to support the economy of Malawi and to create jobs and growth. And this is one of the key objectives of our European Union strategy for sustainable connectivity, Global Gateway.
Minister of Trade Sosten Gwengwe says the investment fora are creating opportunities for local companies. Gwengwe adds that Malawi is also establishing its position as Africa's third macadamia nuts producer and seller, a development which will soon contribute greatly to the economy.
The more we engage in this fora, you're seeing quite a lot of investment in energy, you're seeing quite a lot of investment in agro-processing, but most importantly, we also opening up markets. Through this fora, we are engaging different governments. Apart from India, you know, China has also opened up for Malawi in terms of products like soybean, but also products like macadamia nuts and other products. All this is really driving the mega farm agenda that the president is preaching about.
According to the principal secretary in the Ministry of Energy, Afonso Chikuni, the recently held Malawi EU Investment Forum is expected to bring in over $500 million, which is approximately 876 billion kwacha. Trust Office, MBC News, Lilongwe.
Now, for the first time since 2017, Malawi's development partners resumed direct budgetary support. This was on the back of good fiscal, monetary, and diplomatic relations which the current administration is pursuing. Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Simplex Chicholabanda, is hoping on the future of direct budgetary support to the country. Trust Office picks up the story.
The other revenue measures include the following. Full implementation of electronic exercise tax stamps. Madam Speaker and honorable members, you may have noticed the small yellow stickers on products such as bottled water. These are what we are calling electronic tax stamps. They are designed to help the Malawi Revenue Authority verify whether excise tax has been paid on exercise of goods such as alcoholic beverages, cigarettes, soft drinks, and bottled water. Madam Speaker, we firmly believe this initiative will decisively tackle smuggling and tax evasion. However, some operators have resisted its implementation, largely to continue with illegal activities.
Well, that's it from the business desk, and we wish you success in the new year. Back to you, Kumbukani Piri and Simeon Boyce.
On June 10, 2024, Malawi tragically lost Vice President Dr. Saulos Klaus Chilima and 8 others in a plane crash near Ntungwa in Vipya Plantations in Kata Bay District, while the late Vice President was on his way to attend the funeral of prominent lawyer Ralph Kasambala. Jackson Sichali reflects on the devastating incident and the events that followed.
On his way to Mzuzu to attend the burial of one of the country's prominent lawyers, Ralph Kasambala, the late Vice President, Dr. Saulos Chilima, and 8 others died in a plane crash at Ntungwa in Vipya Plantations on June 10, 2024. The missing of the plane from around 10 that morning caused great anxiety among Malawians, and consequently, the state president, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, instructed the Malawi Defense Force, MDF, and other security agencies to embark on a search operation. Led by MDF soldiers, the search teams had a drone operator and were dispersed into the forest. Despite the fog, the search teams pressed on, determined to find the missing plane. At around 11 o'clock in the morning, the team searching the Ntungwa area reported spotting the wreckage of the missing aircraft. Sadly, none of the 9 in the plane had survived, and all search teams immediately converged at the site in grief. Many onlookers wore somber faces, with some breaking into tears as rescue teams worked to recover the bodies. Hours later, the bodies were transported from the crash site to Reply Ground, where the rescue operation had started the area that morning. From there, 2 planes collected the bodies from Reply Ground to Lilongwe. Thereafter, government requested German aviation experts to investigate the cause of the plane crash, and a preliminary report issued by the German Federal Bureau of Aircraft Accident Investigation, BFU, provided an insight into the mechanical or other factors that may have contributed to the crash. Among its findings, the report noted that the plane lacked both a cockpit voice recorder and a light data recorder. Additionally, the aircraft's emergency transmitter was non-functional, as its battery had expired in 2004. Later, President Chakwera appointed a commission of inquiry to further investigate the cause of the crash. The commission's findings, presented by Chairperson Justice Jaba Alide in Lilongwe, indicated that the crash was likely due to bad weather and other human factors. According to the commission's report, the aircraft was in good condition, having completed only 3,000 hours of flying time at the time of the accident. President Dr. Lazarus Chakwera advised that the report be presented to all family members and be translated into different ethnic languages to enable everyone to understand what led to the tragic accident. Jackson Sejali, MPC News, Mzuzu.
Moving on to health, earlier in the year, Malawi was hit by pink eye disease outbreak that was first recorded in Karonga. Between February and March, the disease affected at least 3,000 people who were treated of the disease in various health facilities. Rodoviko Nyirenda with a look-back report.
Between the month of February and March this year, the disease affected more than 3,000 residents in Karonga before it spread to other neighboring districts such as Chitipa and Rumpi in the north and beyond. Director for Health and Social Services in Karonga, David Sivale, said the disease was first detected among travelers who use Songwe border post, which links Malawi to Tanzania.
It was identified among government staff and later on community members. It continued to spread southwards, Karonga, Boma, and other places. And the experience was like in our health facilities, especially Karonga District Hospital. We started seeing an increasing number of patients coming with that condition, and our team was seeing over 300 per day. So it was a terrible experience because there was too much work and again a stress on resources.
One of the persons that were affected, Mwai Mahimba, shares his experience and the steps he took.
In fact, indeed, we had that problem of pink eye, but I was also one of the person that I was affected. In fact, the pink eye, when waking up in the morning, could feel the itching, and they could have pains, some discharges, but because of the medication that I had, at least I was just okay.
Eye specialist at Karonga District Hospital, Henry Neva, says some people who were affected by the pink eye disease have lost their sight, while others have developed sight complications due to the use of herbs.
You have got who lost both the eye following those using unamended treatment of eye medication, and others had some complications.
Neva then urged communities in the country to first seek treatment from the hospital nearby than using medication that is not recommended by health experts.
The first thing they should, if they are sick with the eye problem, they should go to hospital and get the right treatment, unlike using unrecommended eye medication, which are they use traditional ways of treating eye diseases.
Meanwhile, Executive Director for Malawi Health Equity Network, George Jobe, has urged stakeholders involved in health issues in the country to start preparing for disease outbreaks to save Malawians. Pink eye is a highly contagious disease whose symptoms include inflammation of the transparent membrane that lines the eyeball, redness, itching, and discharge from the eye. Rodoviko Nyirenda, MBC News, Muzuzu.
The country continued to register gains in treating cardiovascular conditions. At least 30 people fully recovered from their conditions after undergoing free open heart surgery at Blantyre Adventist Hospital in 2023. The free operations done locally have helped to cut on referrals to outside countries including Kenya, South Africa and India, which cost the country millions of kwacha. Mercy Zamawa tells the story of a woman whose life changed significantly after she was operated on. We wish to warn you that this report contains theatre footage that some of you may find disturbing.
That's when they told me that you have a heart problem. Your heart is swelling and the blood is not passing properly. Well, the veins are stuck together, and that's why you're suffocating and your valve is blocked.
Gladys's life was turned upside down when she was diagnosed with a cardiovascular disease. This is a group of disorders of the heart and blood vessels which cause chest pains, weakness, numb legs, breathlessness, heart palpitations, dizziness, and fatigue. If not treated with this condition, may lead to heart attack or stroke and eventually death. According to the World Health Organization, more than 4 out of the 5 cardiovascular disease-related deaths are due to heart attacks and stroke, and 1/3 of these deaths occur prematurely in people under 70 years of age. The WHO lists cardiovascular diseases as the leading cause of death globally, taking an estimate of 17 million lives each year. With time, Gladys's condition worsened, making her unable to do her daily tasks. She knew she needed help and that she needed it quickly. She tried herbal and traditional remedies, but to no help. She finally sought treatment at Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital, only to be referred to go to India to be operated on. She needed in excess of millions of kwacha to get to India, which she could not afford to raise. As she struggled to get funds for the trip to India, voila, help came by through a collaborative initiative by Blantyre Adventist Hospital and the Ministry of Health. A group of Indian doctors under the Hearts for Mission International came into the country offering free heart surgeries. And Gladys was lucky to be one of those to be operated on. Relieved, but at the same time, very nervous. Gladys eagerly went for it. And finally, the day she dreaded arrived. Gladys was wheeled into the operating theater, and for 8 hours, a medical team led by experienced cardiologists worked tirelessly to repair her heart. And the operation was successful, a groundbreaking moment for the country. The surgery was a turning point for Gladys. With a renewed health, she can now go about her daily activities without feeling the burden of cardiovascular disease. Gladys's sister, who was her guardian, she is relieved that her sister is now well.
When I saw that my sister received help, I felt good because the work that I have been doing for many years in taking care of her is over, and now I can do some personal things that I was unable to do.
The surgery was led by 2 experienced cardiovascular surgeons, Dr. Nam Wang and Dr. Alega Fekaduleta, along with a team of medical professionals from the United States and Kenya. Since the inception of the open heart surgery camps, last year 56 operations have been done, and among them 32 were free open heart surgeries, which currently have a 100% successful and recovery rate, as Dr. Alega Fekaduleta explains.
I tell you, it's amazing. So far, 100%. No complication, no infection, no death. And this is remarkably very, very highest achievement, because heart surgery is not a simple undertaking, and it carries a very significant amount of complication.
This groundbreaking achievement marked a significant milestone in the country's medical history, offering hope to millions of people suffering from cardiovascular diseases in sub-Saharan Africa. And CEO for Blantyre Adventist Hospital, Klibley Kasinja, said his facility has plans to building permanent structures specifically for the open heart surgeries.
Remember, right now, we are doing camps. That's not sustainable. We want to move into a permanent reality, which means we are going to establish it here and make it happen so that it doesn't have to be biannually as we are doing now. We want it to come and stay.
The coming of the open heart surgeries camps at Blantyre Adventist Hospital has helped the country save millions of kwacha in referrals to countries outside, besides complementing government efforts of ensuring that people have access to health services related to any illness. Adrian Chikumbe speaks for the Ministry of Health.
Sending the patients outside the country, we use a lot of money on one patient, and when we are able to send a patient refer to a private hospital like this one, it means those same resources could be used for more than 3 or 4 patients, and that also cut on the time to wait on the list to go for external referral. So that's why we are very happy with the development.
Groundbreaking open heart surgery that took place here at Blantyre Adventist Hospital paved the way for millions of people that have been helpless and hopeless in getting this treatment.
In 2024, Malawi experienced an unprecedented rise in the water levels in Lake Malawi. The incident left many lakeshore communities homeless as houses, business entities, and other infrastructure were destroyed. Mangochi, Salima, and Nkota were the most affected districts. While Dave Umar and Owen Mavula were compiling this report, the NWRA had already issued a warning that water levels are also expected to rise again during this year's rainy season.
During the 2023-2024 rainy season, Mangochi district received much lower rainfall compared to other years, partly due to the El Nino phenomenon. As a result, it was declared one of the hunger-stricken districts. However, in a surprising turn of events, Lake Malawi experienced a significant influx of water due to heavy rainfall in the northern region of Malawi and neighboring Tanzania. This led to the swelling of Lake Malawi, Shire River, and Lake Malombe, with devastating effects in areas like traditional authorities Mapira, Mponda, as well as Sukamwele village. Scenes of panic and flooding prompted local communities to blame the National Water Resources Authority, NWRA, for not fully opening the gates at the Liwonde barrage. Concerned citizens in Mangochi organized press briefings and protests demanding that the president intervene to address the crisis.
This was as a result of swelling up of some major rivers in the northern region, as reported by Times Group on 8th March 2024. We find this statement not only erroneous and reckless, but disingenuous.
In response to the growing concerns, high-ranking officials from the Department of Disaster and Risk Management and the National Water Resources Authority visited the affected areas. Their visit followed reports that approximately 1,242 households in the traditional authorities Mponda and Mapira had been severely impacted by the flooding. The National Water Resources Authority refuted the accusations, stating that the flooding was not due to negligence, but rather the natural swelling of major rivers in the northern region, exacerbated by heavy rains.
Because of the lake have not gone down since then. Actually, between this month of March last year and this month of March this year, the lake has gone up by 820 millimeters. Okay, that makes it a little bit more difficult. I think the most important thing to note is that as NWRA, we do have a law to say that anybody should not build below the 477 meters above sea level. But most of these areas that have been flooded are below that level.
In the end, the concerned citizens had come to an understanding that the flooding was caused by a natural phenomenon rather than failure in the management of water levels. Despite this, the National Water Resources Authority issued a stern warning to those who had relocated to flood-prone areas. The authority urged them to move back to higher ground, as forecast for the 2024-2025 rainy season predicted that the lake could swell again.
What we saw in the recent past would be worse compared to the current hydrological year. So what we are saying is people must be warned on the dangers of constructing and or undertaking any agricultural and infrastructural activity on the buffer zones, because if we do that, we will be able to avoid water-related catastrophes.
The rising water levels have had far-reaching consequences, disrupting the tourism and hospitality industry in the region. Hotels, lodges and other businesses along the lakeshore were forced to close or operate at limited capacity, leading to significant economic losses. According to the National Water Resources, the water levels are currently at 30 centimeters higher than they were at the same time last year, with forecasts predicting more rainfall. The situation remains precarious, with the potential for further flooding in the months ahead.
Kumbugane, what is your take on this incident that affected a lot of communities, more especially those around Lake Malawi?
Simeon, this was one of our biggest stories, I think, in 2024. We did see that communities living around the lake, as you mentioned in the story, were very affected with the water levels to the extreme. You know, you saw beautiful houses being submerged in water. You could actually see those that are plying their trade along the beach. They were complaining that their businesses were not doing very well. The beaches were also being submerged in water. You know, there were a lot of conspiracy theories, boys. Some were actually saying that no, there's a crack in the lake. That's where these waters were coming from. But we also heard later on people accusing the NWRA that it had not opened the barrage. But there were a lot of other things that were also happening, boys. Like, for instance, we did hear that where are these water levels coming from? But we were made to understand that these waters were coming from Tanzania, where they were receiving a lot of rains. And since there's some tributaries that pour water in Lake Malawi, that's why we were experiencing those high water levels.
I guess this should also serve as a warning to communities, more especially those who are building around the lake, considering that we are facing serious problems of climate change. So I think this also should be a warning to them that they need to move at least to higher lands.
And now to the courts. In 2024, the High Court dismissed a case in which two people wanted it to declare same-sex acts legal. Sitting as a constitutional court in Blantyre, the new custodians dismissed a purported transgender Jana Gonani and Dutch citizen Jan William Axter. The case attracted interest from faith groups, human rights advocates and civil society organizations. Charles Chindongo followed the case and found this report read in our studios by Upile Kaisa.
Months after arguments and counter-arguments from the defense and plaintiffs, the three judges delivered their landmark ruling on the constitutional matter. The two applicants, Jana Gonani and Jan Willem Axter, were challenging the constitutionality of Section 153, 154 and 156 of Malawi's Penal Code. Among others, these provisions criminalize indecent practices between males and unnatural offences, attracting at least 14 years in prison. The applicants urged that the laws violate their rights to privacy and dignity. In their ruling, the three High Court judges, namely Joseph Chigona, Chembiziani Kacheche and Vikochi Chima, dismissed the case of the two. The three ruled that the applicants failed to demonstrate that the laws in question discriminated against homosexual individuals. Reacting to the ruling, one of the defense lawyers, Bob Chimkango, expressed disappointment with the court's determination.
I can say we're not really happy with the ruling. We've observed a lot of things, but we will wait for the perfect judgment so that we read it and understand it deeply. And after that, we'll advise our client.
The court, however, maintained that it is the role of Parliament to review and amend laws if deemed necessary. The outcome excited a cross-section of people, including faith leaders who were party to the case. Reverend Vasco Kachipapa is the General Secretary for Nkoma Synod of the CCAP.
Very happy, and representing the church and the Christians, we are very happy with the outcome of the judgment, because we know that as Malawians, culturally, this type of behavior is wrong. As Christians, we know automatically it's wrong. And even scientifically, this behavior is not normal. And I would like to believe that this judgment will help every Malawian to position our friends. I know that these are our brothers and sisters. We cannot deny them. They are part of us. But now it is our responsibility to pray for them if there is a need of prayer.
In 2021,
Frank Namangale, speaks for Malawi's Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs and could not hide his excitement on the landmark ruling. As of today, South Africa remains the only African country that legally recognizes same-sex marriage.
Also in the courts this year was a high-profile trial involving Anne Mumba, who murdered her husband, Peter Mumba, a professor at Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, Luana. Margaret Mapando with the story.
This year, the Lilongwe Magistrate Court concluded the Anne Mumba case, which started in 2020. Anne Mumba was convicted and sentenced this year for the mysterious death of her husband, Professor Peter Mumba, who then was a lecturer at the Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, Luana. The court found her guilty due to what court said was overwhelming evidence, including testimonies which revealed a pattern of events leading up to the professor's death. According to the court, Anne Mumba's past also came under scrutiny, with reports of multiple husbands dying under suspicious circumstances. Although the magistrate court gave its sentence, lawyer representing Anne Mumba, Innocent Kubalo, expressed dissatisfaction with the sentence, stating that it does not align with the evidence presented in court by both sides. Kubalo also announced plans to appeal the verdict.
Going forward, our focus is already the same. Our focus relates to the conviction. The instructions that we've always had from the date of conviction is that we should appeal against the conviction, because in our opinion and in the client's opinion, we feel it is very unsafe, and it's a judgment which is not consistent with the evidence that was produced in court from both sides. So we feel it's a conviction that must be tested and are scrutinized by the Supreme Court for correctness.
The 56-year-old murder convict, Anne Mumba, was handed a 53-year prison sentence, effective from the day of her arrest on 20 September 2020. Judge Mzondi Mvula delivered the sentence, bringing closure to a case that had been ongoing since 2020. The case sparked widespread attention due to the sensational nature of evidence and allegations brought before the court. Margaret Mabando, MBC News, Lilongwe.
Another murder case that drew public attention was that of Alan Whitaker, Coca-Cola Beverages' former employee, who went missing and was later found brutally murdered in his car. Investigations pointed to one Lester Maganga as the murderer. Maganga, who denies the charge, is said to have murdered Whitaker, who at that time was dating his former girlfriend. The case is ongoing and is before Justice Mzondi Mvula of the Lilongwe High Court. Lonjezo Msodoka reports.
Lester Maganga denied all charges leveled against him, including murder and illegal possession of ammunition. This moved the prosecution team, led by the Director of Public Prosecutions, Masauko Chankagala, and Senior State Advocate, Pililani Masanjala, to parade at least 10 witnesses to prove their case against the suspect. Notable state witnesses included Police Sergeant Clement Dinero from Lingazi Police, who said Lester Maganga is being treated as an accomplice to the murder charge. Dinero told the court that the suspect was not directly involved in the killing of Alan Whitaker. Dinero also confirmed that the suspect was not around when Whitaker was killed, as travel documents which were also tendered in court showing Maganga was in the U.S. at the time the incident occurred. Pathologist Andrew Male from KCH, who examined the body of Whitaker, told the court that Whitaker's murder was highly planned and carefully executed, while Vincent Nguira, a police firearms and explosives expert, told the court that the gun that was used in the killing was different from the one the suspect was found with. The court also heard that the suspect has a license for the firearm, not the ammunition. Defense lawyer Gonje Sodikia has remained upbeat that the witnesses failed to connect the suspect to the death of Alan Whitaker.
PW12, who was the investigator, stated as much on evidence. Like when giving his evidence, that witness stated that, look, we do not have the perpetrator. We do not know who killed the late Alan Whitaker. We do not even know where they are. Like they do not have even the murder weapon. They do not even know what gun was used, what bullet was used, who sent them. So they actually say that they are still looking for the person that killed the deceased. So it cannot be Mr. Maganga because the police themselves know that it is not him. The state has failed to prove that it was the accused that caused the death of Alan Witika. Because the evidence, their star witness even admitted that indeed Mr. Lester Maganga was not in Malawi when the deceased was killed. So basically, based on that, that's the first aspect that we're saying that, look, like you can't say that the essential elements for the crime of murder have been satisfied. But then, even beyond that, the state is saying, no, what we're saying is, or more like what you have is the state saying, it's not that Lester himself killed Mr. Witika, but that he procured the death of Mr. Witika. So the simple question that we are asking is, for procuration to be proven, you must show that someone took certain steps. There is no evidence that shows that Mr. Maganga took any steps whatsoever. So in the end, what we're saying is that what the state has is simply suspicion.
During oral submissions to the court, state lawyer Pililani Masanjala stated that post-mortem results of the late Alan Witika show that the deceased was not killed with one person, rather more people were involved. Masanjala further said, evidence shows that the accused took deliberate steps to ensure that his plans of killing the late Witika came true, describing the death of the late Witika as intentional.
Did as we were ordered. As a state, as a republic, we submitted that as a case to answer on the offense of murder and also on the offense of being found in possession of live ammunition without a permit. I think one of the key problems that came out from the defensive submissions is an issue of why we charged it with the offense of murder the way we did. And I think we have submitted that from the very beginning we're aware of that he was not around on this particular day. So the court will make a decision based on what we have written and what we have submitted already. And the court will also make a decision based on what the defense have submitted and what I've written already. But most importantly, based on the evidence which the state brought to court with 12 witnesses and our exhibits, which were more than 100, and the law. So for us, we are pleased that this case has been concluded.
After oral submissions from both sides on 25 November 2024, Justice Mzonde Mvula, who is presiding over the case, adjourned the case to unspecified date. Mzonde Mvula said he will announce the date to make a ruling on whether the suspect has a case to answer. Lester Maganga is still remanded at Maula prison since his arrest on 20 October 2023.
Also making news the whole of 2024 was the extradition case involving Prophet Shepherd Bushiri and his wife Mary. The couple is battling extradition to South Africa, where they are wanted on charges of fraud and money laundering. The court is being held at Lilongwe Magistrates Court, from where Olive Piri sends us this report.
It was in 2020 when Malawian Prophet Shepherd Bushiri, leader of Enlightened Christian Gathering, ECG, and his wife Mary were arrested in South Africa for several reasons, including fraud, theft, and money laundering. While in the country, Bushiri and his wife were arrested and later released after their lawyers questioned their arrest, describing it as illegal, arguing that authorities did not follow proper procedures. His escape from South Africa has since become a major legal tussle, with South Africa demanding his extradition to face charges. Wapona Kita is one of the defense lawyers.
What we were saying is that according to the law of Malawi, we are supposed to ask witness the questions whether what they're saying is rape, what they're saying is theft, what they're saying is forgery. In South Africa is also forgery, rape or theft in Malawi. So the court has guided us very well.
South African witnesses have been in the country to present evidence, a process which has been fraught with legal arguments from Bushiri's lawyers. State Advocate Dzikondyantu Malunda said some issues raised will be addressed during final submissions.
We believe in our capabilities to analyze the issues in writing, and we also trust that the court, the landed magistrate, will take time to read. I mean, when you look at the documents that have been tendered, the arguments that have been here, it would actually be too taxing on all parties.
Meanwhile, a notice of delivery of extradition case ruling dated 19 December 2024 by the Lilongwe Magistrate Court shows that the court will deliver its ruling on 12 March 2025 at 9 o'clock in the morning. Lonjezo Sodoka, NBC News, Lilongwe.
Reggae fans had time to remember Marcus Garvey as they had jammed to the roots reggae vibes by international reggae icon Burning Spear, who for the first time came and performed in Malawi. He also had a presidential treat. Emmanuel Chikonso takes us back to the jamming field.
According to fun lovers, memories created in the year 2024 shall be difficult to be erased. Just imagine the legendary Burning Spear stepping a foot on the warm heart of Africa for the first time before retiring to active music. Lake of Stars, resurrecting after a hiatus of close to 5 years. Kumingoli Bash with no international acts, Tumaini Fest, Matumela Festival, the list is endless. However, out of all the major festivals that were successfully done, Burning Spear's One Africa tour was a headliner. On his arrival, Burning Spear was given a VVIP treatment from the government of Malawi and later paid a courtesy call to the state president, Dr. Lazarus Chakwera, at Kamu's Palace. According to the chief executive officer for Sound Addicts, one of the show organizers and a sound engineer, Shadrack Kalukosha, all festivals had their own constraints despite being successful. The Entertainers of the Year was also the hot soap in 2024. Female Artist of the Year of the Entertainers of the Year, Emily Zimtambila, popularly known as Emi Debo, held MBC's award ceremony, which had revised the flow of the event. After years of outcry from the creative industry for the National Arts and Heritage Council NAHEC bill, this year the creatives smiled as the bill passed in Parliament. NAHEC aims at ensuring the preservation, conservation and safeguarding of country's culture for national identity, education and posterity. Performances by Yo Maps and Master KG, who were invited in Malawi by KOK, the best of Gwamba's concert, which pulled masses, the return of Entertainers of the Year and Lake of Stars Festival were some of the major highlights in the year 2024. However, despite these shows being successful, there was one popular festival that went silent in the year just ending. That's Sound Music Festival, which is organized by Impact Events, whose founder Lucius Banda closed eyes in June 2024. Shadrack Kalukosha, sound engineer and events organizer, who had also been trusted by late Lucius Banda to work as chief engineer for Sound Music Festival previously, said Malawi lost a legend who reshaped the organization of festivals in the country, which by then could be done by whites only. Isaac Nulu, a dancer, described Soja as a pillar to creativity in the Malawi's music industry.
Lucius Banda brought sorrow into my life. What I have now is because of the money and assistance I was getting from him. Since his death, things have not been the same. It is like our pillar is gone. But still more, together with my friend Oliver Akim, we are trying so hard to push our dancing career, though our father, Lucius Banda, is gone.
This year also left many people in tears after the country lost some great musicians like Katelele Shingoma and Spilo Mwenya. Fun lovers, festival goers and the creatives are yet to see what 2025 will bring, as some plans for the festivals and concerts are already in progress. Emmanuel Chikonso, NBC News, Lilongwe.
The year 2024 was a mixed bag in sports circles. While the country's netball and football teams had a nightmare to forget, elsewhere the Chawinga sisters, Tabitha and Temwa, rewrote history by being nominated for a number of prestigious awards after setting new scoring records in their respective leagues. For more, we're joined by our sports colleagues Norbert Jameson and Amin Musa.
Welcome to the sports segment inside the year in review, as we take a look at some of the major sporting highlights that happened inside the year 2024. Talking about the performance of the national football team as well as the netball team. It was a busy year for the Flames as well as the Queens, with both teams taking part in various international competitions. The Flames missing out on the AFCON qualification, while the Queens faring badly at the African Netball Cup, which took place in Namibia. We'll also take a look at Tabitha and Tema Chawinga, who were recognized in the year 2024. Tabitha being recognized and nominated for the Ballon d'Or as well as for the FIFA International Women's Player of the Year Award. With me in the studios is my colleague Amin Musa. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Nobit.
We've talked a lot about what has happened in the year 2024. Plenty of activities ranging from football, netball, and beyond. But first, let's take a look at the Flames as they performed badly inside the year 2024. Talking of the AFCON qualification campaign, which eventually cost Patrick Mabedi his job.
Yeah, in short, I would say that it has been the sad year for the Malawi national football team, the Flames, especially in this big competition, the big continental competition. Because when you talk of Flames performance, we can rate it everywhere. We can talk of COSAFA, SECAF, and the like, but the big one should be AFCON, because we are not yet to qualify to the World Cup. Because our level, I think we cannot compete at world level. But AFCON, at least, we have been there 3 times. So we were expecting that after mixing out in the previous AFCON edition, we are supposed to go in this edition, but sadly we have performed poorly, winning only, is it 1 game and draw 1, after rescuing it from the Patrick Mabedi, because it was with Patrick Mabedi who started it, everything, and he lost in all his games apart from those with the interim coaches, Kalisto Pasua and Peter Mponda. So others would say Patrick Mabedi has costed us, but others will say maybe FAM has costed us because of our structure. But all in all, it has been a very sad year in terms of Flames, especially in the AFCON. I think we have learned something in the next edition. I know that Football Association of Malawi will try to do something so that maybe we should see something positive in the next edition.
As you put it, we had Patrick Mabedi throughout the qualification campaign, losing all 4 matches. And then towards the end of the qualification campaign, it's when FAM roped in Pasua and Peter Mponda, getting rid of Mabedi, and Pasua managed to win against Burkina Faso and a draw against Burundi. How do we move forward? Because currently the team has no permanent coach.
Okay, we can point out that as Mabedi as a main cause of this poor Flames performance. But I would sum it all by saying that to me, I feel football politics has costed us, because you can see the transferring of him by Walter Nyamilandu and the current Fleetwood Haiya. It was seemed to be Fleetwood, or the current farm executive, was not comfortable with how Patrick Mabedi was recruited. And of course, even Patrick Mabedi as head coach of Flames, he was not comfortable with the current executive. So they have been working not in hand, but separately. Everyone was doing other things. So of course, Flames performed poorly because of that coaching panel, but I would say politics, football politics, has costed us, because the two, between Flames coach and the current football executive committee, there were no trust between them. So I know that moving forward, we don't have coach currently. We just had interim ones, but they had to be confirmed.
Yes.
We don't know whether it will be him or others will be coming. But I know that this lesson has been learned. It's a big lesson for us. I would suggest that the upcoming coach should be given a minimum of 3 years, not 2 or 1, because 2 years is not enough. Or 1 year is not enough for someone to build or to help Malawi to qualify to the AFCON, even doing well on COSAFA level. So I would suggest that, and I expect and I trust that the upcoming coach will be given a minimum of 3 years, so that he should have ample time to analyze our football, to have his best squad, who is going to be in the squad, who's going to be the captain, who's going to be strikers, what should we do, planning well so that in the next edition, whether we want or not, we should qualify.
Talking of the hiring and firing at the Football Association of Malawi, which has also costed the association, as we have heard in the previous weeks, that Farm has to pay Mekemwase over 400 million kwacha. They fired him a few years ago and brought in Mario Marinika, who was also later removed from his job. And now Patrick Mabedi also is taking Farm to court, demanding around 175 million kwacha for an unlawful termination of contract. That's what he says. What do you make of all this?
Yo, it has been, that is bad for our nation, because we're talking of how our economy is in terms of how much these fired coaches must be get from the court. So it's another lesson learned. Mekemwase is expecting to receive a lot of money, of course. And then we are having this Patrick Mabedi also is going the same direction. What I would advise Football Association of Malawi is, whenever they are arranging a contract, I know that the head coach is being hired by the government, but under the recommendation by the Football Association of Malawi, whenever they draft a contract to government, or whenever they appoint a coach, they should at least realize who or the capability of the coach. Apart from the contract or performance-based contract, other coaches, they're just accepting the contract just to get a job, just to have salaries, to make their living, to make their own living. Otherwise, they are not on that level to accept such contracts. So I would also advise the upcoming coaches to the national teams that whenever they are accepting the contracts, they should have managers aside. They should have advisors. They should analyze if the contract is really good for them, because they would go to court, of course, and they'll get something. But some of them are Malawians. Patrick Mabedi, Mekemwase, they are Malawians. So they know how Malawi is, and they know how football is in terms of our Super League, where our quality is. They should not accept the contract or with the very good, big performances or big targets, by knowing that they will not fulfill them. So it's a lesson learned. The contract should be given to the proper coach, or even the coach should sign the proper contract.
You're watching the sports segment inside the Year in Review here on MBC, as we're taking a look at some of the major sporting highlights that happened in the year 2024. You're with me, Kangwingwi Norbert Jameson, and I'm joined by my colleague, Amin Musa. Moving on to our next item, let's take a look at the TNM Super League, which has a new champion for the first time in about 5 years, ending the dominance from FCB Nyasa Big Bullets. It was one of their own, Peter Mponda. He captained the team and also saved the team as assistant coach, then moved on to Silver Strikers, and he has ended the dominance of Bullets by giving Silver the title, coming for the first time in 11 years. What was the key for Silver to end the dominance for Bullets? Was it the Peter Mponda factor?
Yeah, the hiring of Peter Mponda factor, I would agree that is main cause of their dominance, of course. But why I'm mentioning Peter Mponda? Not only Peter Mponda as an individual. The one thing that Silver Strikers did was hiring Peter Mponda as a head coach and giving them opportunity to select his backroom staff. A thing which is not happening elsewhere in the TNM Super League. In all 16 teams, no any other coach was given that opportunity. Maybe apart from Kalisto Pasua. Yes, he was also given some other people, some other former players from FCB Nyasa Big Bullets who were trained from the reserve side or youth side. So the only thing that I've seen that it was successful under Peter Mponda or the Silver Strikers was giving him an opportunity to select his backroom staff. Who's going to be the goalkeeper trainer? Who's going to be the team doctor? Who's going to be the team manager? Who's going to be the performance analyst? So he did that. So he was working comfortably with his team without fearing someone sabotaging him. Otherwise, if you look at the other teams, Mighty Mkuru Wanderers, elsewhere, the coach is not given an opportunity to select his backroom or to bring his backroom staff, which he will work with comfortably. So the success has come after 10 years or plus, but the main cause is that Silver Strikers, of course, supported Silver Strikers because giving an opportunity to Peter Mponda to bring his backroom staff, that is a very big support. They couldn't command him to work with other people whom he is not comfortable with. So congratulations to Silver Strikers. After winning it in 2013, they are now in 9th title. Exactly. I think they are now coming closer to FCB Nyasa Big Place, who are almost 17. So congratulations to them. They did a very good job. Anyway, the coach has also resigned.
Oh yes.
That is another...
Has that come as a surprise to you?
Another surprise, because he was given 1-year contract, and then we understood that he also signed an extension of 3 years, but he has resigned. We will see that. We'll see how Silver Strikers will now work on from there after Peter Mponda has left the club.
Let's now take a look at Tabitha and Tema Chawinga putting Malawi on the map in the year 2024. Tabitha nominated for the Ballon d'Or, and also they finished in the top 5 in Africa, and then in the FIFA Women's Player of the Year award, Aitana Bonmat of Spain, of course, won it, but Tabitha finished in position 7. And Tema also breaking goal-scoring records in the USA. What would you make of the year that the Chawinga sisters have had an impact on international football?
No, it has been a very good year for these two. Not for our women football team, because in 2023 our team scooped the COSAFA award or COSAFA champions. We can develop them, we can support them, we can we can bring them on and support them. We can have a very strong team, because without Temo and Tabitha as coaches, it's not that big, it's not that offensive. So we need to bring in more talents. We have women football clubs in Malawi, a lot of them. So it's just a wake-up call that apart from Tabitha and Tema, we have many. We have seen other players who are going to DRC, Zambia, and the like. They are performing. Women football is huge in Malawi. We need to support them. That's the only lesson we have drawn, especially from these two ladies, Tabitha and Tema.
Let's wrap up the segment with some netball news, looking at how the Queens performed in the year 2024. They had 3 matches, test series, sometime in October against South Africa, losing all of them. And then in December, they went to that was Namibia for the African Netball Cup. Shock defeat to Zimbabwe.
Shock defeat, of course, but away from this Queens, because we're talking about the club, the team now, national team, the Queens. But let's look at the Netball Association of Malawi as executive, because they have just got maybe 4 or 5 months in
office.
Yes, in office. But you can see they have changed coaches twice. What is that now? We are talking about the performance of the club. It is affected or caused by the executive, because the team is not there without chairperson, without the president, without the JS. Changing of coaches doesn't mean coaches are not performing, but how are we administering the sport? What is our integrity in as far as the netball administration is concerned? We expected that maybe the changing of the coach by bringing in the 2 legends,
Peace and Mary.
Peace and Mary will change something, but alas, you see, we didn't even perform. So we are now coming back. I mean,
But the strategy is to rebuild the team. That's what they say.
The strategy is to rebuild the team. Even the former coach, Joanna, was also starting to. He was rebuilding the team. He was bringing in some under 20, under 23 into the senior squad. Now, they have fired him. And of course they have reassigned to other duties, but what is the impact of Mary and Peace? It's just the same. So it's now a soul searching. What should we do? I'm going back to the same. We should focus on grassroots and netball. We should create, or we should bring in more talents to the netball. There have been Marys that have played. There have been Peace. We had Mwaikumendas. They are fading out now.
Yes.
They are phasing out. We need to bring other Mwaikumendas. Who are they? We can go to schools. We can have youth tournaments, so that we should select. We should unearth talents, so that tomorrow we should now have a strong netball team like that of Mary and Pieces. What we have to do is to draw a long-term plan. How are we going to perform in next 5 years? Not today. Today we have failed, but we should focus on tomorrow and day after. How are we going to perform? We should bring back our glory in Africa and, of course, in the world.
Many thanks to you, Amin Musa, and that's how we wrap up the sports segment inside the Year in Review here on MBC. My name is Kamwingwi Norbert Jameson, and many thanks also to our technician, Rudo Soko. Goodbye.
On the international scene, the world has been affected by various occurrences that include natural disasters, political tensions, and the US elections, which attracted global attention. Arufisha Fisher and Charles Pensulo takes us through some of the stories that made headlines worldwide in the year just ending.
In the year just ending, the world had been affected by various activities, including political elections, wars, as well as natural disasters that have killed many people. On the political scene, all eyes were on the US elections, which were held on November 5th. The Republican Party ticket Donald Trump, who was the 45th President of the United States from 2017 to 2021, defeated the Democratic Party's ticket Kamala Harris, the incumbent Vice President. Trump won with 77,268,289 votes, representing 49.9%, while Kamala got 74,982,822 votes, representing 48.4%. Meanwhile, Trump is scheduled to be inaugurated as the 47th president on January 20th. The incumbent President Joe Biden of the Democratic Party initially ran for re-election as the party's presumptive nominee, facing little opposition and easily defeating representative. During campaign on July 13th, Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt while speaking at an open-air campaign rally near Butler, Pennsylvania. In another development, a surge of unrest sparked in Mozambique following the announcement of results of the country's presidential election. Daniel Chapo, candidate for the ruling Mozambique Liberation Front, Frelimo, was declared the winner, securing 70.6% of the vote. Opposition parties have raised allegations of election irregularities, questioning the legitimacy of the results. Venancio Mondlane, the presidential candidate from the newly formed opposition party Podemos, finished second with 20.3% of the vote and is refusing to concede. Meanwhile, Mondlane has declared that he will install himself as president on 15th January after rejecting his defeat in presidential elections. Frelimo's offices, police stations, banks and factories have been looted, vandalized and set ablaze around the country. The latest unrest began on 23rd December after Mozambique's highest court upheld the victory of Frelimo's presidential candidate Daniel Chapo. Still in Mozambique, tropical cyclone Chido killed 94 people since it made landfall in the East African country. The country's National Institute of Risk and Disaster Management said 768 people were injured and more than 622,000 were affected by the natural disaster in some capacity. Chido hit Mozambique on 15th December. The same cyclone had first wreaked havoc in the French Indian Ocean territory of Mayotte before moving on to Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe. In Botswana, voters delivered a defeat to the party that ruled them for near 6 decades by handing victory to another opposition coalition and its presidential candidate, Duma Boko. The 54-year-old of the Umbrella for Democratic Change, UDC, replaced President Mogwetsi Masisi, who conceded defeat after his Botswana Democratic Party, BDP, lost by a landslide for the first time in 58 years. During the year, Ghana also ushered in a new president after the opposition candidate, former President John Mahama, emerged victorious with 56.5%. Mahama's main rival, Vice President and ruling party presidential candidate Mahamudu Bawumia, conceded defeat in both presidential and legislative elections to ease tensions. Mahama, aged 66, is making a comeback after serving as Ghana's president from 2012 to 2016. And in Zambia, a top court in that country has barred former President Edgar Lungu from standing for re-election in 2026. The Constitutional Court ruled that the 68-year-old politician had already served the maximum 2 terms allowed by law. Lungu was first elected president in January 2015 to serve the remaining 20 months of his predecessor's term. President Michael Sata, had died in office in October 2014. Lungu had argued that this should not count as he did not serve a full 5-year term, but the court disagreed, reversing previous rulings that had cleared him to run 3 years ago when he lost to Hakainde Hichilema. A landslide following heavy rains in eastern Uganda killed dozens of people. The death toll rose as government rescue team reached the Mount Elgon area, the epicenter of the landslide. A river burst its banks and a torrent of mud and water swept villages away. And on 20th May, during the year just ending, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi and 7 other people were killed when the helicopter they were traveling in came down near the border with Azerbaijan. Raisi flew to the far northwest province of East Azerbaijan for the inauguration of the Kez Kalas and Koda Afarem dams, a joint hydroelectric power project with neighboring Azerbaijan on the Aras River. Charles Benslow, MBC News, Blantyre.
We end this edition by celebrating the lives and contributions to Malawi by those who passed on in 2024. Statesmen like the former Vice President Dr. Saulus Klaus Chilima and 8 others who died in a plane crash. 2 of Malawi's finest artists, musician soldier Lucius Banda and actor and broadcaster Hope Chisanu, among so many who have sadly left us. Please take a bow and receive our heartfelt tributes to you all for flying the Malawi flag higher during the time they were around. Rest in eternal peace, valiant soldiers. And that's how we conclude this edition of Year in Review. From me, Kumbukani Piri, and
Simin Boyce. And indeed, on behalf of the entire news team here, we wish
you a happy and prosperous 2025.
Well, good evening and you're all welcome to today's weather update. Topping the list of rains which have been recorded today at 8 a.m. is actually 97 millimeters reported from Tambo, while heavy rains have also been reported from Kumano as well as Mwakashunguti in Karonga. 75 millimeters of rains have been reported from Nkhotakota. Lifu in Salima has also reported